All right, those of us who have been on a spiritual path for decades, probably all of us here have been maybe for decades. Maybe we came in with interest in that. Maybe a shock in our system or our lives woke us up to that. Maybe it was a gentle awakening. Whatever it is, we all go through a period of seeking, right? We try different things. We play around, we experiment with different healing modalities, different spiritual systems, different philosophical, etc. And or religion, sometimes we go try different religious practices. It can be many things or just a few. As we build our quiver of, maybe that's not the best thing because arrows are a weapon, but anyway, our toolkit, we could say, of different practices that help us in our soul's evolutionary journey and our spiritual awakening as we go through time in this realm. Now and I would argue, and I'm sure you all know that I would argue this, that all of that was to prepare for this time now. And in fact, indeed, even Course in Miracles, which came out 1965, she began to channel it, so that's 61 years ago, was brought forward for these times now, to prepare enough teachers for these times now. Same thing, that was a very similar time when the Beatles went to the East and made Eastern traditions popular. But before that, back in the 20s, Yogananda brought some of the Eastern traditions to the West. All of this has been preparing us, and there's been a lot of stuff. There's been sidelines, there's been hoax and hustlers and everything, the complete array of a spiritual buffet for each individual human to explore, including, fake gurus and the whole 9 yards. And we learn, we grow. And for many of us, we find specific practices or paths that align. I'm the kind of person who I'm designed. Actually, I had a wonderful Vedic astrology reading years ago, and she said, you're the kind of person who is not meant to be in one traditional religion or spiritual path. What you do is you take from different systems and you bring things together in your own unique way that works for you, and then you share them with others. So that's one way. Others find one path. You could think about like Pema Chodron as a Buddhist, really a kind of a priestess in the Buddhist line, or however, I don't know how she identifies herself. But so all of these things have been there to help us, to prepare us. And now here we are. We are in the change. We can look out there in the world and we can see the sometimes very scary, sometimes very hopeful changes out there. And we also are moving through in our lives transformations, changes, activations, etc. It's like at a whole new level. We're at a whole new level. And for those of us who may be doing still some clearing work, I had an interesting conversation with Lori the day before she left. I was like, we were talking about how, even those of us who've been on a path for a long time, sometimes we're cleaning up some heavy stuff. And I got this image of when you go to the dental hygienist and they do the plaque scraping. Like, we're not, those of us who would be here, we're probably not unloading these gigantic turds of shit we never dealt with before. A lot of us have done a lot of work, but there's like a plaque cleaning now of some of the stuff. So we're experiencing it on the inner and the outer, and we're applying the tools to our awakening at the next level, or our capacity to be a conduit, a pure conduit for divine love, light, intelligence, a hollow bone, to use the shamanic term. So one of the things that can be for some of us very tempting to do is to default to the seeker mode when we are in challenge, right? We do our practices, but also like sometimes be a little bit like looking outside the self for the next answer. And I'm feeling really strongly, and I'm starting to hear this in the field too, that, it's time to really source from within. if we've done the work, if we've not done the work, if we're full of distortions of judgment, hate, attack, and dragging around our truckload of turds of resentments, no, we have to do that work. But for those of us who really have been on this path for a while, who came to be the light bearers, the anchorers of light in this time, sourcing from within is really the key. And it really is kind of what I'm doing, what I did with Inner Temple, and what I'm bringing now to Mother Spirit and to all of us here in different ways, is practices that help us to make sure we've cleared the default of sourcing outside self. Because there's a lot of BS out there, first of all, and there's a lot of people who are dealing with their own stuff. So sourcing from within is really key. And all right, so that's that piece. Let me just tune in here. In all the years of, however many years it was for you, it could be 2, it could be 20, it could be, I'm in 41 years now. Of course, the turns and the things and the distractions and the forgetting about it and stuff, but some of us are decades in this seeking. It's really becoming clear that what we were seeking is simply to remember that there wasn't actually a something fully out there, but a clearing to remember. So as we come to build our tools and our practices, now the energy is calling us to embody love. So we've done clearing. I've been talking about this for years, clearing out, doing the shadow work. I used to use the analogy of the glass of water. And if you got a bunch of dirt or poop at the bottom, but it's very, very calm and still, all the solid material will sink to the bottom. And not that you want to drink the water at the top, but it looks clear, right? And then you get the frequency upgrades, so all of the light activation we've been going through, moving through the photon belt, etc. And those frequencies are shaking up the glass so that it becomes, first the glass becomes cloudy, and eventually that gunk, dirt water or poop water or whatever you want to say, toxic resentment water, whatever, self-hate water, starts pouring all over the place. So for a long time, the path has been, for many of us, clear the water, right? Clear ourselves, heal ourselves. Now, if we've done the work, it's time to really be in the embodiment. And the embodiment really is presence. One of the reasons why for years I've had us dance is not simply because I like to dance, although that's true. Many, many years ago, my very first spiritual retreat was at a place called Shalom Mountain in the Catskills of New York. So this is when, Zach was really little and I was a young woman. And before every session, it was kind of like, what would we call it? We would call it somatic Gestalt therapy in a group setting with some spiritual undertones. And it was beautiful, beautiful processes. We would always begin, before every session, we would dance. And after a session, we would dance. And whoever was being processed, we would all tell them how much we love them and lift them up and rock them during the song at the end of their journey, at the end of their process. So the guy who ran that, Jerry Judd, he looked exactly like John Muir. Old guy, big white beard. He had been a minister for years, had a spiritual awakening. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. He said, why we dance is to get people out of their heads, to get us out of the thinking, analytic, discursive mind into the body, into the present moment, into the delight or the flow of the dance. So that's certainly part of what I've brought in all these years. And of course, Mother Spirit, the original group, when we would get together, we danced. We'd sit in circle, we'd pass a talking stick, we'd dance, we'd drink mint tea, all of that. And eventually we began projecting our shadow onto each other and had to work through that too. So presence is of, utmost value at this time. But presence is very challenging if we have a very busy mind. Mercury North Node here, and North Node in Gemini and Mercury in Aries. So I can think and think and think. It's been quite a journey for me to come into presence. And it's still, as soon as something gets my attention, that excites me or scares me, the energy flows out. But the practice of going within and pulling from source, right, being source informed by doing the heart practices that I think you've all been exposed to now, where we inhale and we draw from 0 point. And we use the I am commands to begin to activate and bring into the field the consciousness of a higher self. I am love. I am forgiveness. I am divine grace. I am gratitude. I am divine service. I am freedom. These qualities that we bring in to activate our energy bodies and our layers. And also, there is certainly in the community, in one of the guided meditations several months ago, it could be quite a while ago, there's the heart activation part 1, part 2 meditation. That's definitely worth downloading and practicing. That's where I think it's called heart light or heart bath meditation, where we pull from 0 point and we bathe each of the layers of our body in divine love, light, intelligence, in God light. Physical, the auric field, and the body template, and then we go into the emotional body, the mental body, the astral body, and then that outer etheric gossamer layer. So that is one of those practices. I think, I want to say October, September, I'm not sure, somewhere in there, but you can scroll through monthly meditation and mantra and just look for one that says, that has 2 parts. And it's like heart bath meditation or heart light meditation. All of these are, again, to help us to be source informed rather than externally informed, which helps us come back to presence. And the other pieces of this, all right, how do I want to weave these in? Ultimately, what we're wanting to be, I mean, I'll speak for myself here. If this doesn't align for you, that's cool, no judgment. But ultimately, what I'm in service to experience for myself and then share with others is to be in a place of divine neutrality with what's going on out there in the world, including in my family dynamics, physical health issues, financial situation, etc., etc. To be in a space of a liberation from attachment to what happens out there, including out here in the physical form. So that divine neutrality, again, is part of what gets supported and activated the more we source from within, which, of course, when I say within, I don't mean within an ego. You all know that. But for anyone who maybe is new in the community and listens to this on the recording, I'm talking about our inner access to our divinity, right? Divine light, divine wisdom. So the more we do the, activate through different practices our willingness to be source informed, the more we can come quicker back to divine neutrality when the poop is hitting the fan, when something really captures us and we get pulled out. Again, I gave this example, I think, either last week in this group call or in the Inner Temple call. I got super excited about India. And I started to be aware how that pulled me outside myself too. And how that then became a magnet for other kinds of looking outside for stimuli and really having to be a fisherwoman and reel myself back in. So this source informed lets us come to divine neutrality. It helps with relinquishing judgment, because when we come back in, we allow whatever is. That person wants to be in judgment and attack. God has blessed them. There for the grace of God go I. This situation's happening there. This is happening in my finances. This is happening in my body. Who am I? I'm a divine eternal being. Let me come back to the neutral space, because that's where I have my power. Let me come back to presence, because we know all our power is right now, right here. And so, of course, with that, relinquishing judgment and forgiveness practice, because if we drag around resentments, that's not divine neutrality. It's very hard to be in presence. We can't embody love. And that includes, resentments or guilt or self-judgment. This is something I've been really supporting some family loved ones on, like the message in Course in Miracles, all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. So, just keeping with those practices, but again, with the idea that what am I doing here? I am choosing to pivot from seeking because I've remembered. So I can embody presence. I can embody love right now. I can be the love I want to see in the world because I'm source informed rather than externally informed. I'm source informed rather than ego informed, that sort of thing. So that's that. There's a few other things I want to share here, and then I'm just going to tune in and see if there's any like guided message. But many of you you probably all are familiar with, but I'll just touch on a couple of points here. The Heart Math Institute. So I went back and I did a little research again today because I don't remember numbers very well. The heart versus brain and intellect. So when it comes to awareness and knowing and the capacity to be present, of course, the heart is the way to go. Seeking is of the mind. Seeking is of the mind. The heart is the place where we go for knowing and presence. And just some science here, the electrical field of the heart is about 60 times greater in amplitude than the electrical activity generated by the brain. And the heart also produces an electromagnetic energy field that is 5,000 times greater than the brain. So we really, even though we've all been defaulted into it by virtue of being born in the times we were born, we're really hobbled when we try and figure shit out from the brain. Whether it's a problem or even visioning our sweetest dreams. And it takes practice, right? It takes practice to surrender the impulse to think it through, to work it out, to seek for the answer in order to surrender and allow guidance to come through. And again, of course, I'm speaking to those of us who've done a lot of shadow work. If we're dragging around a lot of resentment, and I don't think this is any of us here on this live, but we know stuff still comes up where we get triggered, right? We activate it, we clear it, we know what to do. But if we're dragging around unprocessed grief, unprocessed rage, unprocessed resentments, bitterness, all that stuff, then this idea of surrender, the mind won't do it. The brain is not going to do it because it doesn't feel safe, first of all, and because there's a lack of clarity. The shaken up water with the muddy water, we won't get clear guidance. So this is all predicated really on us activating the heart, having done enough shadow work where we're not in that old state of consciousness. So we're hobbled when we use only the mind. The heart is where it's at. In other words, it plays a much more significant role in influencing our ability to choose our highest trajectory, our capacity to come back to divine neutrality when there needs to be sanity amidst chaos, our ability to love and forgive ourselves, to accept ourselves, warts and all. And also, obviously, our physiology. I mean, we know that our physiology is ultimately eventually influenced by our state. The more negative we are, and in time we feel it in the body. And of course, it also affects others around us. And I think, whether you've been an empath all your life or that's being activated more in these years, you may find that, it's harder to be around people who are negative because we feel it more deeply. And honestly, I've even noticed, because I don't consider myself, I think I was empathic when I was very young, and like many of us, it was shut down. It was, beaten out and shut down and all that stuff. So now it's coming back online. And I notice I could even be in a group like this, totally virtual. We're not in physical space together. And I can feel someone's response if I say something that either triggers them or surprises them. And it took me a while to realize, wow, I will reflect later on a call and I'll be like, oh, I felt some energy from her. So that's like that. It's reactivating in all of us right now so that we can begin to work at energetic levels. And of course, some of you've had this all your life. So I'm just speaking to the choir here. But this, and again, the more we activate the heart, the more capacity we have for our clairs to come online, our multidimensional abilities, our sensitivity, and then emotional, energetic communication that precedes words can be more consciously, I don't want to say managed, consciously engaged. And all right, let me just look here because my notes went in a bit of a different direction. So let me connect because that's a good point to say. Yeah, well, I'll just do a little segue here that one thing to keep in heart too is that the brain, again, we've all defaulted to it. We were trained this way. Some of us very strongly so, others of us not so much. We're more emotional, more sensitive. Either way, the mind can run interference for us. So it can be telling us repeated thoughts that make us sad, how it's not going to work out, trying to figure it out with the mind because we're, I'm going to get my shit together because I'm too emotional. Or never even letting that silent pause. I'm just going to be in presence and be in the I don't know and allow myself to be in I don't know. And the trust that's involved in that. Because again, the mind, the intellect, the seeker within us, what do you mean you don't know? Well, let's go research it. Let's go find out. Let's take another course. I'm going to be in the I don't know. I'm going to be in the feeling and allowing and then letting it flow out instead of feeding it. Because that's all mind interference. Okay. So all of this coming into presence, embodying love, it also allows us greater emotional regulation. It quells the intellect's desire to run interference through overthinking or excessive judgment or looping thoughts, right, about the fear of the future or fear of, whatever. This divine neutrality of the heart and practicing heart coherence, being source informed, consistently will begin to override the excessive thinking, the emotional reactivity, the impulse to judge others or self, or to be attached to outcome. That's the other piece. I was just talking with, who was I talking with about it? Oh, my friend, my farmer friend that I went to see yesterday. The Bhagavad Gita, if anyone's read the Bhagavad Gita, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if I were to have to encapsulate it in a nutshell, I'd say Arjuna's on the battlefield, the warrior. He's got to kill his cousins who are bad guys. They're very, very destructive. And he's like, and his charioteer is Krishna, but he doesn't realize that Krishna is a god. He just thinks he's like a great king. And he's like, he drops his weapon and he goes, Krishna, I can't kill my cousins. And Krishna gives him a whole talk about dharma, which is what you're here to do. You're a warrior. You're here to do this. This is your dharma. This is what's in front of you, is to do this. Now, thankfully, none of us have to do that. But it's, and what he says is you do it without attachment to outcome. You're not attached to winning. You're not attached to losing. You're not attached to any of it. You're doing it because it's your dharma. And this is where we're at right now. This is our dharma as priestesses holding a field during this great transition, is to come into as much divine neutrality and compassion that is from that divine loving neutral space, not from the I'm out of control with my emotions because I'm so upset about what's going on. That's not very helpful. It's not resourced. It's our dharma to come into presence, to be in service when we can, and to relinquish the attachment to the outcome. We don't know. We don't know how long we're going to live. None of us know that. We don't know if we'll get to see New Earth. We don't know if we are the inheritors of a line of practices that we will pass down for 3, 4, 5, 10 generations before the fruition of energy consciousness is a renaissance and flourishing on this planet. Hopefully not, but the attachment to it is what gets us to grasp and start to source outside. When is it coming? When is it coming? So all of this again to say, the embodiment of love, the embodiment of presence, love divine, is to be here now with this knowing it is all good because we're divine and eternal. All my power is here, right now. Let me breathe into this. Let me drop into the heart space. Let me surrender attachment and receive and be guided into what is the next thing, what is the next thing, what is the next thing, whether that's sitting in meditation, cooking a meal, building a new course, taking care of your family, whatever it is, having a deep cry, having some ancient shadow stuff emerge and go, oh, okay, I guess the next thing is for me to heal this. That presence, that embodiment of love allows us to do that with a level of grace, a level of divine neutrality, and power that cannot happen from seeking and sourcing outside the self. This is presence. Whew. Okay, so let's take a breath, and I'm gonna just take us through a little heart I am activation.